All right, guys, I'm gonna be doing this engine mount video in steps. I'm kind of waiting on the parts still. So what I'm gonna show you guys here is just how I'm jacking the car up and then what to remove. And as I get the parts here later in the week, I'll throw them on and you'll see that later in the video. So bear with me and stay tuned for the whole video to really make sure you're doing it right and so you don't hurt yourself. All right, guys, so we're gonna get under the car really quick and I just wanna show you where to jack up the vehicle, or at least where I'm doing it. The two main jack stands are pretty much right behind this cross member here, along the body of the car and over here as well. I'll show you how I put it right up against there on both sides. And then my second ones, in case for some reason those ever fail, I have two more. One under this side, not on the control arm, but kind of like on this brace, I guess the cradle, right here in the front cradle. These are here just in case those two fail. I'm also gonna have a jack stand lifting this engine up to get the engine mounts out. So I just wanna be safe. Another thing is I'm not a big fan of standing these jack stands up a bunch of these things. I like to lay them as far down as they can go, just so I know that there's no way of these slipping and falling and dropping the vehicle lower on me. But in this case, kind of need the room. So I put them all up, and that's why I have 4. Obviously, you guys know your car's manual. You wanna make sure your e-brake's pulled, and you wanna also make sure that your wheels in the back are both chocked. I have this rubber block back there and a wooden one over here. As you jack the car up, it sometimes tends to pull the car a little bit forward. So you just might wanna see how this one's a little loose, kind of re-jam it in there. All right, guys, another important thing to note, you're gonna be working under the vehicle, laying on your back usually, or even if you have a lift, you're still gonna be under the vehicle. This can become a pretty dirty job, so I would recommend definitely wearing safety glasses, and it's a huge benefit if it has like this rubber gasket. So when you're, wearing these glasses and you're up and dirt's falling and stuff, this kind of helps keep all that out of your eyes, which really saves you a lot of time when you're in the middle of a big job. I'll throw a link in the description for the glasses that I use. I use these every day at work as well. They do good to me and they're really cheap. They're like 10 bucks, so can't beat that. So anyways, let's get back into it. The first thing I'm gonna remove is this plastic cover to get that out of the way. All right, to get this plastic cover off, you're gonna need a 12mm socket, and I like to use a clip tool to get the 2 clips out on the sides that I have. All right, guys, so previous owner, I guess, had broken some of these bolts out of the bottom. So I only have 3 bolts and I use 2 clips to hold everything in. I also do want to note, now that we have this cover off, I just want to show you guys a couple things. I have some rattling exhaust shields. They're rusted off of the exhaust and everything. And it looks like the bolts that they hold together are also pretty rusted. So I'm not going to count that for the NVH noise when I install these engine mounts, just because I already know that those are rattling anyways. So it looks like all of these shields along here are loose, as well as the up pipe shield. Always make sure you guys have your safety glasses on before you cut. I made these wooden blocks here because when I'm going to be raising the motor up to get the motor mounts out, you don't want to put the jack directly on the oil pan, which is where I'm going to be lifting the engine up from. So I'm going to be putting wooden blocks in between there. And then once I have the engine lifted up, there's going to be space under it between, I believe it's the subframe and the engine, where I'm going to also sit some wooden blocks in case there ever was a jack failure. I won't lose my fingers or my hand. So always be safe rather than sorry. And these measure, the short ones measure 8 inches. Got about 3 of those and 2 9-inch pieces. I figure I'd give myself a little variety. All right, once you guys got the car on your jack stands, you're gonna get your car jack under the car. So as you guys can see, I have 2 blocks of wood here. The blocks of wood are 8 inches wide, and it's gonna go right under the oil pan like that. And just watch out for your drain plug right there, and make sure that your wood is not gonna hit all along this cross member. It's also important to note that the reason I cut out 8-inch pieces of 2x4 for this is because if you have anything that's too long, it'll kind of get in the way as you're trying to remove each motor mount. So having a 8-inch piece seemed to be a good width for me, and just have them straight across like this, right on top of each other. So right here's your driver's side motor mount. That bolt right there, that looks like it's a 14. And then there's gonna be 2 more 14s, one there that we can see, and one that's actually behind the rack up here. So what my plan is gonna be is to loosen this 14 mil on both of them, on both sides, and then raise the engine up with the jack right here, and then have enough room to be able to get my hand back up there to the other side where the bolt should be behind that part of the subframe. So we're gonna go ahead and give this a shot. The only thing I have taken off right now is the one nut on each side of the engine mounts. There's a nut and a washer on both. I'm now raising the engine up with this jack, and I'm just checking up top to see what's keeping the engine from fully coming up. And I think that the air intake, since it's mounted down here by a 13 millimeter bolt, that should come up because it's bolted to the body, but the engine's raising. So I just don't want to mess anything up with the intake or the turbo inlet hose. So I'm going to be taking off that 13 millimeter nut down there for the air intake. And then I also noticed as I was raising the engine that it looks like the strut bar on this, it looks like it'll clear, but it does get a little close over here with your AC line and this other hose. So I'm going to take off these 2 bolts as well as the 2 bolts on that side, and just take off the center part of this just to be safe. You might not need to do this, and if you don't have one, then you don't have to worry about it. Easiest way for me to access the 13 millimeter that holds the air intake in place is a 3/8 ratchet, a couple extensions, and then I have that swivel right on the 13 millimeter socket. Just gonna pop these hoses off, and we can tuck them over there. Next should be the bolts up here holding your strut brace. All right, now that I have the strut brace off and I loosened the air intake, I have the 2 nuts on the bottom of the motor mounts out, and the jack's in place to jack the engine up. So I'm gonna go ahead and start to lift this engine up very slowly and carefully. We're gonna watch the engine raise out. Now it looks like the motor's jacked up pretty high. Gonna check under it. So right now I'm looking at the motor mounts, and from what I can see here, looks like we need about another 1/2 inch to get that bolt clear. Once that's clear, you'll be able to from the back of the motor mount, get that back bolt out. It's kind of like under this metal subframe area here. And then the other bolt is right there. They're 14 millimeters and they're probably a pain in the butt, so we're gonna give it a shot. Also, you can kind of see over here where that light's at. You can see right there, that is the other motor mount right there. And there's the stud. Bring you guys under it, and you can see right where that light's at. There's the stud right there, so that one's almost out as well. Looks like the driver's side is a little bit higher than the passenger side. The passenger side seems to be sinking down a little bit. So here's the passenger side motor mount. We're in the process of jacking it up. You'll see that if you look right under here where we took the nut off on the bottom, and here's the front bolt right there. And then the back bolt should be directly opposite of this bolt right here. So it will be sitting somewhere under the subframe up here, up in here. So to get to that, a lot of people, you know, you have to jack the car up pretty high and then reach around the back to get your hands in there. I would definitely say to make sure you have a good jack. This one's brand new. Make sure you have a very trustful jack, because if this thing gives way when your hands are up in here where this engine mount is, you'll crush your hands and that'll be that. And you'll probably be stuck. So just beware. I'm not responsible for anybody getting hurt on this job. This is dangerous, so take it seriously and use every precaution that you can. Double check everything and pay attention, you know, pay very good attention to what you're doing. Once you have the vehicle on jack stands and you have the jack under the engine, you start to jack the engine up. That's creating a big space under here. So what my recommendation would be is once you get the engine high enough, you can slide a block of wood under here just to be safe in case your jack does give. You'll have a piece of wood there to be able to get at least your hands out of the way, hopefully. That's the hope. All right, guys, so I have the engine jacked up by the oil pan. Just wanted to show you guys, here's a good angle to see everything. That's exactly where you need it to get the motor mount out. I didn't take the top bolts out yet, but just so you guys can see what it looks like once it's jacked up. This is the passenger side right here. You kind of see there's the outer little pin is like an alignment pin, I guess you would call it. And then the bolt right there. And then, so just take note, the pin's on the outside and the bolt's on the inner side of the passenger side. And then of the driver's side, right up here, you have that little pin thing on the right side, or the outer side, and the bolt is on the inner side. So the bolts are on the inner side, the pins are on the outside of the mounts. While it's jacked up, I do want to show you. So you can see the passenger side motor mount from here. There's actually a bolt right up there. That bolt is the 14 millimeter to the back of the engine mount bracket. So to get that out, you're gonna have to kind of reach around the back over here to get that. And then right here, you guys can see right where that light's at, there's like that corroded 14 millimeter bolt right there. That's on the back of the driver's side engine mount. That's the other 14 mil bolt you're gonna need to get. And I'll show you guys how to get to them. You're gonna have to reach around the back for that as well. All right, from the passenger side of the vehicle, I'm gonna get under here and show you guys where I'm at with the passenger side rear bolt on the engine mount. All right, so passenger side wheel, look up above the subframe, and right there, that bolt that's right there, that one right there, that's the rear bolt for the mount. So just be aware that this jack is holding the engine out of the, what I would call the cradle of the car, or the subframe. So that's what's giving us space under here to put our hand. But you have to be very careful, because if that jack gives out, the engine comes down and this space here will crush your hand. So just be very, very careful. What I'm using is a 14 millimeter wrench, and try to show you guys the best that I can. Get the wrench on the bolt, and then I'm slowly turning it. And I'm gonna do that until I can work that one out. And then over here on the driver's side, you can see the bolt right there along where those wires are. Those are wires to some of my gauges inside the vehicle. That's gonna be the next 14 millimeter right there to get out. All right, so I have a 3/8 ratchet with a short 14 millimeter socket. We're gonna reach around the control arm. This is the driver's side. So you're gonna reach around the back of the control arm and the outside of this frame. Bring your wrench up over this axle. All right, I'm gonna spin my wrench around, and right here, boom, you see it sitting right there on the 14? That's the back 14 millimeter bolt for your driver's side engine mount. So I already have this broken loose. I'm just gonna go ahead and work the bolt out. It's gonna take a little while. All right, quick update. So to break that driver's side rear bolt loose, I used a 14 millimeter socket on a 3/8 ratchet. That's just to break it loose. Once you have it loose though, if you have a gear wrench, kind of get it right on there. Same kind of way. This could speed you up a little bit. Once you guys have the driver's side rear bolt really loose, you might be able to get it by hand. Just want to try to show you how I'm laying on my back here, and I have my arm up there. I hope you guys can see that. And I'm just kind of unthreading it right now by hand, and it's, oh, there goes the light. And just like that, boom, came right out. So now we're gonna take out the one front bolt on each side, one on the driver's side and one on the passenger side. Also, a little quick tip while you're laying on the ground working on your car, so you don't hurt your neck, you could get a deflated soccer ball. Get a deflated soccer ball, and it works great. Like honestly, like when you're laying under somewhere and you're trying to hold your neck up and do something, you get like a neck cramp and that shit hurts. So yeah, like no more neck cramps, just get a deflated soccer ball. Works great. All right, now I'm gonna remove the front bolts for the engine mounts. We're gonna start with the passenger side. So it's just this 14 millimeter bolt right up here. And once that's out, the motor mount should be free. So I'm gonna use a impact just to zip that one out. Shouldn't be in there too bad. Try to do this holding the camera, no promises. Oh, there you go. 14 millimeter came right out. Now it looks like our engine mount is free. All right, so you guys saw that, right? See if I can slide it back up in there. So the motor mount sits in there like this. I kind of pulled the lip of it towards the oil pan, kind of tilting it down. And boom, voila, comes right out. I guess also while we have it out of the car, just notice the orientation. It looks like the long side of this plate is in the front up here. That's the front bolt. And the rear part of it is the shorter one. This long rounded edge goes against the oil pan. Also, now is just a good time to clean everything out. So I'm gonna go ahead and wipe all of that down as well while we're in here. All right, now we're on the driver's side and we're going to go ahead and remove that 14 millimeter. And that's out. So let's see how we're gonna get this one out. All right, so I'm just kind of lifting it out and dropping the front end of it. Also, see how close that this mount's coming to the wood here? So that's why I cut an 8-inch long 2x4, because if they're a little longer, then I've heard people having trouble getting these out past the wood. Just so you guys can kind of get an idea. That sticks out about, I'd say, 2 inches off the oil pan. So just a little mental note when you're trying to sneak these out. And same thing for this motor mount, the orientation, this whole long side right here goes against the oil pan, and the front part of the mount is longer over here, and the rear of it is the short end. So you guys can see, went in like that. So let's go ahead and swap these over to the new ones. All right, so up front you have the 2 old motor mounts, and back here you have the 2 new motor mounts. This is the orientation that they actually came out of the car and go back in as. So these are the Group N mount, STI mounts. These come on like the STIs. I got these on Amazon. I'll throw a link down in the description for those. The only difference is I heard that the rubber in here is a little bit stiffer, but other than that, pretty much identical. Now there is a difference with how we're gonna put these back in. The only thing that's gonna be a little bit different is on the bottom of these old ones, there's this pin that kind of helps you line everything up. And on the new ones, there's not the pin. There's no pin. You see what I'm saying? So there's this bottom plate here. You could put it on here. I would not recommend it. It doesn't seem to fit exactly. At the bottom of the OEM one that came on my WRX, there's this cutout right there, you know, all like right here. But on this one, the cutout's not as severe, or not as cut out, I guess. So just so you guys can see that, you don't have to reinstall this. So leave that on your old ones. Just grab your new ones as they are, and we're gonna put them in like that. So the one thing you're gonna have to do is reuse the old hardware on here. So I'm gonna clean those up. They're just the 14mm nuts right here and here, and we're gonna just throw them on here. I'm gonna go ahead and zip these off. And I just want to show you guys what these motor mounts look like after 155,000 miles. Mine started to rip from the bottom of the plate down here on the driver's side, and oh yeah, and right along the top there too, along the plate. So all that's the reason my engine was bouncing all over the place, because it basically turned into an engine cradle, not an engine mount. And then the passenger side, I believe, was similar. Yep, along the top, and I'm assuming along this bottom, but we'll see when we put the new ones in how they perform. They should be a lot stiffer. There might be a little bit more engine noise, but I'm not really worried about it. I mean, it is a Subaru, so and has a 3-inch turbo back exhaust, so it is made to rumble. So if you're worried about the NVHs, then you bought the wrong car. Sorry to tell you. All right, so now I'm just going to be basically bolting this plate down to the engine mount. Put you guys down over here. Be careful when you're tightening this in a vise. You don't want to destroy it. It doesn't have to be in there tight at all. So you're gonna take your 2 nuts that you got, your 14 mils, always throw them on by hand first, make sure they're going on good. And these are gonna get torqued down to 30 foot-pounds. I saw it was anywhere between 25 and 30, so I'm just gonna go with 30. All right, we got 30 foot-pounds on the torque wrench. Be careful when you're torquing it down, you kind of see how that was pulling on the mount. All right, this time putting the passenger side mount in here to torque these 14mm nuts down. I'm gonna actually put the vise on the outermost parts of this mount, just to be careful. So now when I go to torque this down, hopefully the mount won't twist with it. And you just want to make sure that when you're doing this, that everything's flush, or not flush, but straight. This isn't going to actually go over that, but if you look under here, you just want to make sure that this is all flush, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's all level together with the mount itself. You don't want this to be twisted. See how it kind of has play? Try to make sure it's straight along, horizontally with the engine mount. Again, 30 foot-pounds. There you go. She's ready to go back in. All right, I'm gonna try my best to show you guys this from this angle. So we're gonna take your new motor mount, has the R plate on it for right or passenger side. The long side in the front right here the shorter side in the back, and this rounded edge is gonna go towards the oil pan right over here. And what we're gonna do is I'm gonna put it in and get this front bolt in there first, and then I'm gonna go and work around to get this back bolt in, which goes back here. All right, so I got the front bolt in. Always start these in by hand first. I started this one by hand. I'm gonna reach around to the back bolt over here and do the back one by hand. And then I'll zip this up tight. And the rear one, you're not gonna really be able to get like a torque wrench or anything in there. So just tighten the back one as best as you can. All right guys, so we're looking at the passenger side rear bolt for the engine mount. Right where that gear wrench is on, right there. So the motor mount bracket, right? See this silver like T looking bracket right there? That's gonna be what you can use to align this rear bolt. I got like a little pry bar like this, and you can kind of get to the left of it or over to the right of it to kind of slide it back and forth. And then once you believe you have it centered, you have your right hand coming up through here, and then your left hand reaches around here. You see my fingers up here under there, and together with both hands kind of try to get that bolt in there. Just start it a tiny bit, and then you can get the box end of the wrench like this and start it a little bit. And then since I have a gear wrench, I kind of lucked out here because this seems a little bit easier now. Once it's in, I kind of just tighten it up. So that's just a little trick. So I'm just torquing up that rear bolt. I want to show you guys I have my gear wrench on there, and then I have another wrench like that right in there, and I'm able to kind of torque this. So I'm gonna keep doing that, make sure that's snugged, then we'll move on to the driver's side. All right, so we got the I got the rear bolt in. Now I'm gonna just zip up the front. That should be good. Give it a little tap tap, and that 14mm is good. The rear one is as tight as I could get it, and now we're gonna move on to the driver's side. All right, so here is the driver's side motor mount. Long side in the front of the vehicle, small side in the rear of the vehicle. This long edge goes along the oil pan, and I'm gonna go ahead and lift it in there. All right, so the driver's side's pretty easy. You're just gonna literally lift it up in there. It should slide right in, and then get that front bolt started by hand. So I do want to leave a little bit of play, so it makes it a little bit easier to get the rear bolt in. All right, so good news is, it looks like my wire job from before could stay, and you guys can see kind of like right there where that hole is right here. So you're just gonna line your plate up and then throw that bolt in there, bolt it in all the way by hand, and then try to snug it up as tight as you can with a wrench. Okay, and see that 14mm bolt? That's all the way in, that's as tight as I can get it. Next is just gonna be the front 14mm bolt, and then we're good to start to lower this back down and very carefully place these bottom studs back through these holes. So I'll show you guys how to do that next after I zipped up this 14. All right, she's on there. This is still free, my wire. Nothing's hung up. So for the next part of this, I know that the passenger side seems to be a little bit lower than the driver side, so I'm gonna lower this jack down really slowly and get a pry bar and try to push that stud in the hole. Trying to get that stud in the hole down there. You don't want to touch the actual stud with your pry bar. You kind of want to pry along the side up here or in here to kind of angle the engine mount into the hole. So that's what I'm gonna try to do right now. So I just got the passenger side stud through. I put the washer and the 14mm nut back on. I'm gonna go ahead and do the same thing on the driver's side. That stud is through on the driver's side. So I'm gonna reinstall my 14mm washer and nut. All right, and everything is now tightened up. This is the passenger side one. See the driver's side one, it's all tightened up. Now, pretty much, it's just gonna be putting everything else back together. The only things we have off, this strut bar, put the strut bar back on. We also took off the 13mm nut down there for the intake. Other than that, we should be good to go. All right, guys, here's the moment of truth. Everything under the vehicle is tightened up and everything up top's tightened up. If you're wondering, again, what we did up top, it was just removing the strut bar if you have one, and the 13mm nut that holds the air intake in place. Other than that, that's all I did up top. Everything else was done down below, and everything's tightened up, so I'm gonna go ahead and start it up, and hopefully this fixes the engine shake that I had. Definitely better than it was. All right, guys, so now it is the next day. I test drove the car around overnight, and I just want to give you one more look. So everything looks good. There's no engine shake anymore. I can feel a little bit more NVH. All right, I guess you guys could say you do hear a little bit more NVH inside the car, but it's really honestly not that bad. But overall, the car feels more intact. Feels like it has more direct power now. When I give it gas before, you can kind of almost feel the engine give a little bit, like shake. And now pretty much right when you give it gas, it goes. So everything feels really locked in, like together. So yeah, overall it was a great upgrade. I definitely would recommend this if you guys are running your stock engine mounts, because you may notice that over time with the stock engine mounts, as you put a lot of miles on your car, they kind of start to get weak. They start to get weak, and you might start even feeling a little bit of engine play as you give it gas or brake. So yeah, I would definitely recommend doing this upgrade if you're still on your stock motor mounts and you have a lot of miles on them. Again, the link will be down in the description. I use the Subaru Group N motor mounts. These are the same ones that came on the STIs. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If it helped you guys out, leave a like. If you have any questions, just leave a comment. And if you guys are interested in the content that I make, then hit that subscribe button down there for me, would you? Anyways, I'm gonna head out. Oh my Lord, look at this kid. Flying. Anyways, I'm gonna head out. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in the next one.